Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing. Hello all. I have everyone muted. Could you unmute yourself and we'll just do a quick check and make sure everyone can, we can hear everyone?
Morning, it's Rosanna.
Hi, it's Lene.
Hi, it's the Benjamin IT guy.
Good morning, this is Vic.
Good morning, everyone. Fran here.
You are unmuted. So that's the mute button right there. You just click on it to mute if you need to.
Good morning. I was out of the room. Did somebody ask me to unmute myself?
Yes, we're just doing a sound check right now. Thank you.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Here is my sound check test. I hear everyone.
Did we get the issue ironed out in terms of the public facing agenda on live streaming?
Yes, Rosanna's going to share that.
Okay,
She is sharing it right now. As soon as you start the meeting, it will pull up on her live share.
okay. So I'm starting the meeting right now. And do we expect everybody will be present? All board members? I see Miss Benjamin, Miss Almy, Miss Trujillo.
I think Dr. Stark is going to participate by phone.
Okay, and what about Dr. Diaz?
As far as I know, she is participating.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So the meeting has started. Now here's what I want to test out. So when I go to an agenda item, are we just seeing the agenda? Okay, so.
Are you seeing the Zoom on top? When I'm sharing the screen, are you seeing my name, Mr. Hill's name is Benjamin? Are
Yeah.
you seeing that? Is that in the way? I'm trying to find
No,
out where.
I'm not. All I'm seeing is your tab.
Okay. All right.
And so I just want to make sure that as I'm taking notes. Okay, so that's what I was interested in. So I just put in a testing note and that doesn't show up. Okay, so we're good to go there. And during the meeting, I'm going to go ahead and turn off my video and my audio so that I'm not distracting anybody, because I'll just be staring at the screen while I'm typing. Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Susan. This is Denise.
I can hear you. This is Kim.
Yes, good morning, Susan. This is Tom.
Everybody can hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yep.
Okay, all right. Is Louisa on the phone? Is she with us?
Mrs. Benjamin, let me adjust my audio here. I did receive word from Dr. Stark that she will not be phoning in this morning. She had some technical difficulties with her phone and she's unable to join us.
Susan, it looks like you're talking, but you're muted.
Okay, Madam Chair. It's 10 o'clock. Miss St. Clair is our note taker this morning, and she is going to share her screen with the flag so that we can do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dr. Weeks, I will be sharing the screen.
Oh, okay.
And so here goes. As long as Ms. Benjamin, you're still muted. There you go. Whenever you're ready.
You hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Is Dr. Diaz with us? Laura Diaz?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Okay, let's call the meeting to order. Phoenix Elementary School District. It is 10 o'clock and it is Thursday, April 9th. With that, let's have the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Weeks.
Yes, ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Weeks. We are on to adoption of the agenda. Could I have a motion, please?
I move adoption of the agenda.
That was Ms. Almy. Can I have a second?
I second.
That was Ms. Trujillo. Okay. Any comments or adjustments? With that, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Okay. We are on to awards, recognitions, and announcements. Dr. Weeks?
Yes, thank you very much. First of all, I would just like to thank you all for attending this Zoom meeting this morning. This is highly irregular and unusual and slightly uncomfortable. And for those of you who are watching live stream, we appreciate your participation and engagement in our district. Thank you so much. The first up for awards, recognitions, and announcements really was something that we wanted to bring forward with the meeting that we left off when we were in the governing boardroom. Something that we do regularly is called Star Awards. And this is our special thanks and recognition award. And this is our opportunity to show appreciation and publicly recognize folks in our district who have been recommended for outstanding work. And we are very proud of this practice and happy to continue it, even though we are on Zoom meetings, because people still need to be appreciated for their hard work. Normally, at this time, what I would do is I would turn the Star Award agenda item over to Dr. Vic Diaz, in charge of Human Resources, and I'll do that again this morning to maintain our consistency. What we will not be doing is getting together for a group photo, unfortunately, afterwards. So Dr. Diaz, would you help me out here, please?
I'd be happy to. Good morning, everybody, and very excited, very proud, and very happy to be doing something that brings some normalcy back to our school district, which is to recognize our Star Award winners for this meeting. The Star Award winners for the month of February were selected from Capital and Edison. And we'll start with the Star Award winners from Capital. The first is Anaida Santiago, a wonderful second grade teacher over at Capital. She cares about all of her students, and she puts a lot of effort into everything that she does, such as creating detailed lesson plans with engaging activities for all the students. She mentors student teachers, and she mentors new teachers, which matters more now than ever in our climate of a teacher shortage. And most importantly, she always greets people with smiles. The 3 words that her team used to describe her were caring, kind, and honest. Our other Star Award winner from Capital is Shakina Wyckoff, an instructional assistant over at Capital. She demonstrates exceptional dedication to her students and to teachers. She's an extremely motivated individual. She perseveres no matter the circumstances that surround her. Her flexibility, initiative, and positive attitude make her a tremendous addition to the community, and more specifically, the kindergarten over at Capital. And we know how important it is to get it right in kindergarten. Some of the words her team used to describe her were motivated, committed, and self-driven. Moving on to our second school, the Edison Estrellas, we have 2 Star Award winners. The first is a 3rd grade language arts teacher, Ms. Latoya Jones. Ms. Jones is an asset to Edison School, and she's more than worthy of a Star Award. She loves her students. She stays in constant communication with parents. She organizes extraordinary opportunities for her students as well as the school. As a teacher and as a mentor, she devotes many hours to ensure her students are on track. One of her passions among many is her love for books and her love for reading, which she projects and she receives and she participates with her students. She sprinkles the school with her artistic talents that are appreciated by all. And the 3 words that her team used to describe her were artistic, passionate, and dedicated. And our final Star Award winner is a child nutrition worker in the Edison kitchen, Miss Irene Andrade. Ms. Andrade is a great self-starter who's brought her experience and leadership to our hardworking team in the cafeteria. She goes above and beyond to make sure everything gets done on time and that everything is ready for kids to enjoy their important meals every day. Ms. Andrade always tries to help and make sure that everybody works together as a team. And the 3 words that her team used to describe her were dedicated, caring, and professional. So with that, I wish a congratulations and a thank you to all 4 of the Star Award participants. We also want to take the time to thank their families and their loved ones that lend them to us and to our community. And we appreciate their support of our schools through their loved ones as well. So again, many congratulations to our Star Award winners from Capital and from Edison.
Yay.
Thank you, Dr. Diaz. One of the norms that we've picked up since we've been doing this Zoom, and of course, in 2 weeks, you can't be a Zoom expert, but one of the things that we picked up was this round of applause thing. So we do a round of applause, and sometimes that's all we can get out of these kind of ovations. Normally in the boardroom, there would be lots of folks. There would be flowers and gifts and all kinds of things. We would be taking pictures, and it's quite a fanfare. There's also a certificate that goes along with this Star Award winning. And so we will make sure that we figure out a way to get these certificates of appreciation to our Star Award winners. And we want to thank them for their hard work and for their commitment to our students, families, and staff. Thank you so much. Madam Chair, at this time for the agenda, there are no other awards and recognitions. And so with your permission, I would move on to the COVID-19 update.
Go ahead, Dr. Witz.
And I'm sorry that I've broken my own rule several times this morning, which is before we speak, we announce who we are. My name is Larry Weeks, proud superintendent of Phoenix Elementary School District, and we will get the hang of this as time goes on. There are folks on the phone this morning who are listening in and who cannot see us. And we want to make sure that they become familiar with our voices as we speak. So we have with us this morning, for those of you who are on the phone and who cannot see us, Madam Chair Susan Benjamin, Governing Board President, Dr. Elora Diaz, Vice President, Mrs. Lene Almi, Board Member, Mrs. Carmen Trujillo, Board Member, Dr. Victor Diaz, Director of Human Resources, and Dr. Denise McLaughlin, our Assistant Superintendent or Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Rosana Hidalgo, Chief Operating Officer. So I hope I've made all of the announcements. So as you speak, please feel free to say, "Hey, I'm Dr. Victor Diaz," or "I'm Dr. Hidalgo, and I'm going to make a comment." So with that, I'll move into the district COVID-19 update. Before I have a prepared statement here. Before I do that, though, I just want us to take a few moments of reflection to show appreciation for those folks who are on the front lines every day. Those folks who are in the medical field, the nurses and the doctors. But also I want to just reflect on those folks who are driving trucks to deliver food to our grocery stores, the folks at the checkout line at the grocery stores, our own child nutrition workers and social workers and folks who are out on the front lines doing the very best for students and families. This morning I was at Garfield, with 4 team members out in the drive-through lane handing out books to families. And so, all of this takes great courage, but it truly takes guts to strap on a face shield and throw on some gloves and go out into the world and make a difference, whether you're at the cash out line, driving a truck, loading pallets on the warehouse, interacting. So I just wanted to take a few minutes to acknowledge those folks, doctors, nurses, those who are into the wind to protect us. So, district update amidst school closures. First of all, I want to thank students, family, staff, community, and you, Governing Board, for the support across our Phoenix One community. We are here to see one another through as a core value of our district, and I'm feeling it loud and clear as we move through the weeks. To the Governing Board specifically, I want to thank you for your support during these unprecedented times and for being with us this morning. To our staff, I want to thank you for stepping up and working together to find solutions and support for our families and students, and for supporting each other as we navigate through these unprecedented, challenging times. We are all learning new skills as we take on distance learning. Thank you. To our families and students, thank you for your patience as we work through to find the most efficient and effective means to deliver instruction to you at home. I know that you as parents would prefer not to be educating your children at home, and I would give anything for our schools to be open and full of smiling, learning children. And that day will come. To our community at large, for reaching out to us and asking us how you can help and support us. Thank you. And also to all of our education colleagues and fellow superintendents across the Valley and the state, thanks for sharing your ideas and plans and for working together. We are a district that has withstood the test of time, and I've mentioned this a couple of times, almost 150 years old, through the Great Depression, Great Recession, the Spanish flu of 1918, and part of 1919, and 9/11. We'll continue to stand the test of time because we're focused on making sure we do the right thing for our students and staff. We're moving steadily along as we build, and there's an old proverb it fits beautifully here. Be not afraid of going slowly, be only afraid of standing still. I can assure you, we are not standing still. Our leaders are standing up and making it happen as we take care of our staff, students, and families. And I'm incredibly grateful for our leadership team and staff who are stepping up. Thank you. Together, we're going to get through this. There are 6 areas of focus that I'd like to discuss this morning. The first is well-being. We know that the social, emotional well-being of students, families, and staff is our #1 priority. And we continue to focus on that each and every day. We ask that our parents and staff focus on that first and foremost and make sure they don't overly stress beyond that. This has been our focus and mantra since the very first day of school closures, and it will continue until we put this thing behind us. We know this includes feeding our families, our child nutrition, transportation, and warehouse teams have been effectively focused on feeding those families. #2, fundamental needs. We asked that the fundamental needs of our staff not be interrupted. That means paychecks and healthcare and the services they need to support themselves and their families. We continue to provide support and guidelines for caring for ourselves and staying healthy. #3, understanding needs. We reached out immediately to our families to survey their needs and followed that up with attempted phone calls to every single family. We will find new approaches to reaching those we have not yet reached. #4, communication. We centralize all our points of communication so that when families are trying to reach us, they can call our helpline, email our community relations person, and find all the updates and resources we are providing at one central location. #5, work plans. We have work plans and communication protocols in place for every department and staff. #6, teaching and learning. We have been delivering learning enrichment activities weekly and have plans in place to distribute more hard copy packets to our families. Our at-home learning plan is being launched in phases as we are gearing up Google Suite for our distance learning platform. Our teachers are all getting settled into the suite and beginning to record their lessons based on instruction times, schedules, and tools provided by our CNI team. Soon we roll out laptops for those families who need them. And we also believe we have a solid plan in place to help our families gain internet connectivity through Cox Connect to compete. These are huge accomplishments given we have been a hands-on in the classroom district for almost 150 years. Thanks to CNI and the MIS and all those who are making this possible. It's nothing short of a miracle that our MIS team was able to acquire web filtering software so quickly for distribution to ensure your students are safe on the internet. Thanks to all of our support staff, teachers, principals, and leaders who are making sure we accomplish all these things for our students and families. We know there are a lot of questions out there about summer school and many other future plans, but at this time, we must take it one day at a time and stay focused on delivering instruction and supporting our staff in the safest possible way. For anyone who has questions or concerns, we ask you to turn to our centralized phone, email, and website information. And although I don't have a slide for you, the email address is communityrelations@phxschools.org, and the telephone number is 602-523-5900, and we will continue to share that information and promote those points of contact. And Madam Chair, that concludes my speech on COVID-19, and I assure you this won't be a regular lengthy thing.
Thank you, Dr. Weeks. Are there any comments or questions?
I have a comment and a question. This is
Dr. Diaz.
So first and foremost, I just want to thank everyone in the district. I have been so impressed with the response and the hard work of every single staff member out there. I mean, we could not be serving the community and staff without each of you. One question I did have is regarding food. I've learned that we might have a shortage of food supply, so I was hoping you could speak to that a little bit more and how we'll ensure that we can continue to feed our students.
Dr. Diaz, that's a great question. And I think it's a misperception that's out in the community. I know that Dr. Hidalgo has details about this. And so I will turn it over to her. But we do not have a shortage of food. We estimate our counts and we provide those food bags at the locations, and we simply had more customers than we had planned for. Dr. Hidalgo, can you provide some additional details?
Yes, good morning. This is Dr. Rosana Hidalgo. Dr. Weeks is correct. The shortage that occurred yesterday was as a result of moving from a daily feeding to a once a week feeding. Our numbers have been fluctuating a little day to day. So there's always a percentage of additional meals available. Yesterday, there was an overwhelming demand. I don't know if the notion of going once a week caused some of the overwhelming demand. For example, at Dunbar, they passed out 170 meals in 15 minutes. That's not what has been happening the last few weeks. So we had shortages at several of our sites. One of our sites had the most demand, which was Edison. We do have, for the most part, the same staff working at these different feeding sites, and they recognize the families that are coming to pick up meals on a daily basis. And yesterday, they said there was an overwhelming amount of folks that had never been to the feeding sites to pick up food. So in anticipation of that, next week, the increase will be, the food supply will be increased by 25%. I know that some of our neighboring districts had the same challenge. Everybody's trying to move to the once a week feeding program. Once a week means instead of receiving 2 meals per day on a daily basis, you're getting 10 meals per student at a time. So yesterday there was over 12,000 meals served. Unfortunately, we ran short. They used up everything that was stored, in advance for next week. So they used up everything they had. We sincerely apologize for that. Like I said, we're going to increase the amount, and I think we had a little bit of miscommunication in our initial communication to the community, where it says we pray that we're going to have food. We do have avenues to obtain the food. It means we are going to anticipate a larger amount of persons coming to request food. And I think it's also, there's some changes coming to the way it's being distributed. Before it was that the children had to come and be present to pick up the grab and go meals. And there's been some flexibility, so we need to set up a system to account for those that are coming to pick up food. And so the food is available to anyone that's 18 or under, regardless of where you live or what district you attend. And so that's why it's very difficult to determine how many meals are needed at a site, even though we're serving them out of different school sites or locations. It's difficult to determine how much we need. And so the averages were determined based on the meals served the past 3 weeks, and we will do a better job. We don't ever want that to happen. We take full responsibility for that, and our staff is working very hard to make sure we get meals out to our families, as well as maintaining their own health and safety, because when they're packing these meals, we need to make sure they are maintaining social distancing, wearing gloves, wearing masks, maintaining the 6 feet of distance. The difficult part comes when we're distributing, and I know There's a need out there. Most people can drive up and pick their meals up, but for those that walk, we're concerned about making sure everybody maintains social distance. So we're going to have to step that up and see how we can manage that a little better. So I hope that answered your question, Dr. Diaz.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much for that explanation. That's really helpful to kind of hear that rationale. And just to clarify quickly, so we are still providing the same amount of meals, but we're just consolidating to one day. So you would receive those meals in advance rather than coming every single day.
That is correct. That will also not only help with the health and safety of our employees, but of the families that are coming to pick up.
Okay. Thank you so much. That's a lot of logistics. So thank you guys for, working through those and being flexible.
It is our pleasure. It is our pleasure.
This is Susan Benjamin. Are there any other comments or questions based on the update from Dr. Weeks?
Ms. Lene, Almy, I had one quick question. Can you guys hear me? I'm so sorry.
We can hear you.
Okay. So I just had one question. You mentioned that you're going to be rolling out laptops for families that needed them soon. Are there any students that currently have school issued laptops at home, or are students working on whatever device they have right now? And if they have no device, they'll be able to get a laptop.
As far as I know, there aren't any students currently with school devices. This is the big push to follow up on the survey work that we did to determine how many students have internet access at home, how many students have a computer and internet access at home, and how many students need a computer. And so to answer your question shortly, we don't really have, as far as I know, I mean, somebody stepped in and helped me with this one, but I don't think anybody has already been issued any device. So the devices that students are using at home currently are their own devices, and the internet they're using at home currently are their family's own internet. So what we're trying to do here is shore, just like everybody else, we're trying to shore all of that up.
Yeah. So that was what I thought was true. So when we are going to push out those devices, do we have a plan in place for, like, I know you mentioned the web filtering software, which is great, but like just damage to any laptops or any kind of policies that would go along with students having those devices at home when they haven't previously had that?
There is a form that families will complete that provides some accountability, but we have to be prepared for the idea that some devices would be, lost or damaged. So we're hoping to minimize that as much as possible. I don't know that a piece of paper necessarily gets you there, but it certainly lets folks know our commitment. These are vital resources that were given to us mostly through capital override and bond funds. And so we want to make sure that we're good stewards of tax dollars in as much as we can be. At the same time, we want to make sure that we shore up the gap that has already occurred. And we want to be able to provide a system and opportunity for our teachers to engage our students in a digital way. So we're using all the tools we have in our arsenal to be able to deliver high quality instruction to as many students as we can.
Okay, thank you so much. That's helpful.
Are there any other, this is Susan Benjamin, are there any other questions or comments?
Yes, Madam President, Carmen Trujillo here. To touch on Lene's point,
Carmen, you're going to have to speak up a little bit, at least for me.
I have no idea where this microphone is on this computer, but I actually was asking Troy about that yesterday, so he might have some information maybe for Miss Lene. But my question is regarding teachers. So I'm not too sure if it'd be directed at Troy or maybe Dr. Diaz as far as professional development, and wondering how we're supporting teachers that maybe aren't so tech savvy and those that are.
So I will defer to the CNI team on the PD plan. There is a PD plan that's been developed And we have recognized that we have varying degrees of technical skill in our teachers, among our teachers. You know, we've been at this for 150 years, delivering instruction in a room. And on a Tuesday, we said, okay, oh, by the way, we're going to deliver this instruction virtually. So we've been gearing up for this. But it does feel like there's a lot of PD that's necessary here. Dr. McLaughlin, Dr. Diaz, do you have any additional comments?
Yeah, this is Dr. Denise McLaughlin, Chief Academic Officer. We have the privilege of having an email that goes out to all instructional staff, and our technology integration specialist, Lauren Ashmore, has been providing, I'll call them quick guides via email. And we know that for some folks that doesn't necessarily work. They need to have someone show them how to do it. So she's been available, and as of today, she's worked with 40 teachers individually to help them get their Google Classroom set up. We imagine that number will increase over the weekend, and Ms. Ashmore is available along with, she has a small team that's helping her respond to teachers' needs.
And this is Vic Diaz, Director of Human Resources. Yeah, I would echo that there's a sharp learning curve for some teachers who are using some of these technologies for the first time. And I know that the Monday that we came back into the building, we all got a very quick training on Zoom, all the leaders. And then the leaders very quickly were able to turn that over to their staffs. And so that's just one example of some of that professional development that's happening so that teachers are able to provide that instruction. I also want to turn this question a bit over to our support staff. Because that digital divide is alive and it's a part of everything that we're doing right now. And it's very real with our support staff. And so many of our support staff have access to a lot of the same resources we share with the community about how to get internet. And devices have been taken home by our support staff so that they can also continue to do their jobs from home. We're providing professional development through Safe Schools, and quite a few of our folks are doing professional development on things like customer service, resolving conflicts, sensitivity and diversity awareness, and things like that. In terms of those support staff members who may not have internet access or may not have a device, we're preparing professional development that's print-based. So packets of trainings as well as binders from places like OSHA and other professional organizations to make sure that we're all sharpening our saw at this time. And so we're definitely working with all of our staff to bridge that digital divide.
I have a follow-up question. This is Dr. Laura Diaz. In terms of the expectation for our teachers to grade, what does that look like, given there is some inconsistency with devices at home and internet access?
There is no expectation for grading, Dr. Diaz, no assessments for the rest of the school year.
Thank you.
Are there any other, this is Susan Benjamin, are there any other comments or questions?
One more. Carmen Trio here again. I just wondered if there was an update on maybe when the district mailroom might be sending out any type of US mail communication for families that aren't connected via phone or online.
Yes, Ms. Trujillo, we were on deck to send out a postcard to all of our families about a week ago, and we found some discrepancies that needed to be shored up. So we're retooling that postcard, but it's still our plan to reach out to our families via US mail and then try to figure out, how many addresses are no longer valid. That's good data for us on the return pieces too. And so I'm trying to think how many pieces of mail we have sent out since we've gotten into this. I don't think any. I think this would be our first launch that really speaks to the COVID-19. And I'm hoping to get something out next week.
Okay, next week.
This is Susan Benjamin. I do have two questions. First, and this is for Dr. Weeks. This is regarding the rollout of laptops for the students. We know that there's going to be a percentage that break down and have problems. Is there a surplus in the district to be able to replace those laptops?
We're not handing all the laptops out. We have a schedule where it's one laptop per family, unless you have 3 students attending one of our campuses, then it would be 2 laptops per family. And when we conducted the survey, not all students needed a device. And so we have a table that tells us by site how many devices need to be handed out. Now, those are all estimates. And then the surplus or backup or whatever, the contingency devices would remain on site until we need them or until we come back to campus and begin to use them in normal fashion. Now, it's the device, it's the internet connectivity, it's the charger, it's all of those ancillary pieces that go along with the device as well. And so the family's first stop of support would be the school site. And so we don't overrun our MIS, our IT teams. And then from there, we can provide support to the schools, teachers who can provide support to families. We think there's going to be quite a few questions and concerns early on that will begin to flatten out over time. Our students are very talented and they know technology very well and have been using technology in the classroom to supplement their instruction. So in this case, we don't know what we don't know, but we have a good plan in place to support families and students with the rollout.
And when is the rollout going to begin?
We have been talking about rolling out as early as next week. What we're finishing up on these days is make sure that the safety protocols are in place, make sure that the social distancing is in place, and then making sure that the devices are upgraded on the campus before they're issued to families to make sure that they're good and safe with the web filter that our MIS department was able to push out to these devices. So the way you push out software is you simply put the device on the network in a wireless zone, and the MIS department pushes the software out to each device. So if it takes, let's say 30 minutes to push out a piece of software on a device, you could stage 30, 40, 50 devices at one time for that 30-minute period for that push. So it's a pretty efficient way to get software on the device.
Thank you, Dr. Weeks. Anything else from anyone? Okay. This is Susan Benjamin. We will, and thank you for that update and answering all of our questions. We will move on to community communications. Dr. Weeks, are there any community communications?
Yes, Madam Chair, I have heard.
Okay.
And, I would say to the community, I appreciate your patience. We have a telephone number and an email address for you to use to submit your community communications. And I just wanted to remind folks that because of the time it takes to pull all of this together for a Zoom meeting for our board meetings, that we ask you to honor the cutoff time, and the cutoff time was yesterday. These particular messages came in this morning, and that's fine because we're just getting started here. But going forward, we would appreciate the community to adhere to the cutoff. And so, without further ado, the first community communication governing board members will be read by me. All of them will be read by me. This one comes from Caitlin Fasano. She's a HERD teacher, a HERD resource teacher. And she writes, hello all. First of all, thank you to everyone who is working hard to make sure our students are cared for, loved, fed, and learning during this unprecedented time. I know it is no easy task, so thank you for working so hard. However, I would like to seek some clarification on a few recent happenings. Firstly, the food. How exactly did we run out of food so quickly for the week? Are there less resources available than during the school year because of distribution difficulties? Was there just a gross miscalculation in how many would be needed? I'd like some clarification about how the number of meals was decided on, besides it being based on how many students had previously come. It seems like a gross miscalculation and a little negligent to think that if distribution moved to once a week, there would not be more students coming, as it is their only chance at food from the school for a whole week. And as time goes on and money becomes tighter and tighter for people all throughout the community, neighboring districts have not had the difficulty we have had in coordinating their food distribution. It is not okay that we and our students have to depend on other districts besides ours. Secondly, and I'm going to speed this up because I need to stay within the 3 minutes, just like that.
I got you on the clock, Dr. Weeks.
Okay, so let me speed this up. Secondly, the distant learning communication. Communication is vague and unclear, and at a lot of times very last minute. I understand the desire to have every student working on the same things, but the way we are going about it is not equitable. It is not reasonable to expect teachers to have mastered new technology and be posting videos with less than 3 days notice of that, while we haven't even fully figured out how we're going to make these technologies accessible and how we're going to make paperwork accessible to students who absolutely have no option but to use paper. I understand that different school sites are being given different expectations, which only furthers inequities in instructional delivery. There seems to be an overall lack of transparency of expectations and the failure to ensure schools are operating on the same timeline. Again, I understand these are unprecedented times and there's a lot of cogs in the machine. And I thank you all so much for the work you are doing to make this something that works. Stay safe, be well. Caitlin Fasano, 4th through 8th grade resource inclusion math, special ed facilitator for elementary school.
Well, Dr. Weeks, you did that within 3 minutes, so.
Oh, good, good.
You didn't hear the little bell go off.
Hope I'm honoring the people who type the stuff in here. Okay, so the next one comes from Kelly Fisher. Kelly Fisher, she says, hello, my name is Kelly Fisher. I'm a kindergarten teacher in the Deer Valley Unified School District and live at, I don't know if I want to give out the address here. I'm writing today because I'm a proud member of our local union, DVEA, serving as secretary and will be vice president next year. I'm also a member of the Arizona Education Association Board of Directors. As an active participant in the union, I have been privileged to hear about how PECTA has been involved from the ground level in so many important decisions in your district over the last few years. The PECTA leadership and membership has served as an example for many local unions across the state due to their commitment and passion for their schools, communities, and the Phoenix Elementary School District. Their involvement from the start of this COVID-19 crisis has helped other local unions have a voice in the decision-making process as well. Thank you for including the voice of the educators in decisions that directly impact them and their students. That is so important because, as you well know, they are truly the experts when it comes to the students. I hope this process continues and that PECTA is a constant voice in the decision-making process throughout this crisis and in all aspects in the future as well. Thank you, Kelly Fisher, 22-year veteran educator, proud 22-year DVEA, AEA, NEA. So we thank Kelly for her comment. And the last comment I have this morning, Madam Chair, members of the governing board, come from Jay Barbuto, proud teacher at Edison. Good morning, Cabinet, Dr. Weeks, governing board, and all of those watching at home. I'd like to thank the following people for their tireless work over the past couple of grueling weeks. Is and Shelman Brown have been extremely helpful in their communications with HECTA and staff members. I appreciate both of your dedicated, passionate work. I want to thank all the educators who are showing just how essential they are to making a school district operate, whether it be through distance learning, getting kids fed, or just checking on their well-being. They are going the extra mile to ensure student safety. Most importantly, however, I want to give a special shout out to all the classified educators who have done such a wonderful job keeping our district running over the past weeks. At my school alone, we had classified staff members helping teachers with parent communication, distributing schoolwork to families, hopping on Zoom calls to figure out how they can assist their transition to distance learning, and making sure our students have an option to get fed. As a teacher, I've always considered classified staff important members of my campus. Now, we'd be completely lost without them. Thank you. J.V. Barbuto, 7th and 8th grade language arts teacher, Thomas A. Edison Elementary School. And that concludes the community correspondence, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Weeks. This is Susan Benjamin. We're going to move on to approval of the consent agenda. And I believe that there has been an update in HR area, HR adjustment for early retirement. Is that correct?
That is correct. I will turn it over to Dr. Hidalgo for the details.
This is Kim St. Clair, Board Secretary. Could you please direct me to the number of this change on the agenda?
I don't have it. I just had that. This is Susan Benjamin. Dr. Weeks?
It's on consent agenda, Kim.
Okay, so do I need to make any note of that, or just go ahead and go to the vote?
I think that, well, we have to make a motion, but I think I was just trying to say that what we saw has been updated.
Okay.
And we're looking for Dr. Hidalgo to tell us what that really is. I just kind of gave an overview. So it was an adjustment of an early retirement.
Yes, and I need to look at the agenda item and I won't let me scroll up here. So let's see. Oh, hold on. I'll look at my other device. Sorry.
It's okay.
Was it Dr. Hidalgo? I think probably item 10 on the consent agenda.
Yes, I just can't open it on here because I have the shared screen, so I have to go to my other.
Okay.
Yes, Kim, you are correct. It is the agenda that we are working from this morning is the revised agenda that includes the early retirement that President Benjamin is speaking about.
Okay, so this has been updated. Okay.
It's just updated. Yes, there's some revisions. Just knowing there's several revisions on the revised request to promote separation of employment due to folks that are who have recently turned in their letter of resignation or that rejected their employment contracts, and so. We tried to make sure that we had the most updated list available and added yesterday to this agenda so that everything was on there. As far as, are you referring to Ms. Diane Ray resigning, or I'm not exactly sure. I'm so sorry.
I wasn't sure. Mr. Lynn just indicated that, or someone did yesterday to me, and I didn't know that if it's updated on this.
It is updated. This is the most current list, and so it was revised from the previous list. And I can't be specific which changes are where. I apologize.
Okay.
So at this point, this is Susan Benjamin, need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
This is Lene Almy. I move approval of the consent agenda.
And I need a second, please.
Carmen Trujillo, I'll second.
Okay, we have comments or questions about the consent agenda at this point? I have one, and it's regarding HR. It's regarding Diane Ray resigning as of 5/29. And I believe, and Dr. Hidalgo, you can tell me if I remember correctly, that Sharon Carpenter is also the lead psychologist. Is she retiring also, or she's leaving?
That is correct. She has submitted her retirement. I don't know if she has accepted a position elsewhere. So there is a position that she is interested in within the district. So, but as far as remaining in her current position, she will not remain in her current position.
So my question is, what's the plan? Because that's early for a special ed director. Typically you'd see them leave June 30th and there's going to be a gap. So what's the plan?
I would have to defer to Dr. McLaughlin. I mean, I know the process has started to get the application out, and I don't know if we have an exact detailed plan at this time.
Well, when Dr. McLaughlin, do you have anything to add to that?
And unfortunately,
Yes. Yes, I can add to that. We are hoping, Ms. Benjamin, that whomever we do recommend to the board for hire is able to come on earlier than that July 1 date. And if that's not possible, Ms. Ray has committed to supporting us through that month before the new person can start.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Any other questions about the consent agenda? With that, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. The consent agenda passes. Okay. We are now on to business services. Dr. Hidalgo.
Yes, this is Dr. Hidalgo. I am recusing myself from this agenda item as I have a conflict of interest. So I would ask that Dr. Vic Diaz join the meeting and address the agenda item on health insurance.
Yes, this is Vic Diaz, Director of Human Resources. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board, and members of the cabinet. Very excited to present to you this item, which is a request of approval of option 1 of our renewal of our health providers for the 2021 school year. Blue Cross Blue Shield and Delta Dental are currently our active, offered to our active employees. We were presented with several options for coverage in the 2021 school year. And after review of the options by the insurance committee, we are recommending option 1 as this is the recommendation of the committee. I do want to take a moment to thank the members of that committee, Laura Lopez Gomez, Michael Covarrubias, Tom Lind, Sylvia Encinas, Gina Ramirez, Yadira Brambila, Dana Ramos, Nick Lodato, Sherry Zeeb, Joanne Kramer, Janice Durham, and Kelly Noble. We met several times to discuss these. And at the end of the day, option 1 was the request of the committee. Option 1 includes a 2.33% increase in medical services. And there's also a 4.5% increase for dental services. Our vision coverage remains voluntary, and so the rate has not changed. In terms of what option 1 contains, it mostly keeps things the same. We maintain our regular office visit copays, we retain our pharmacy copays and our urgency copays. The big change in option 1 is an increase in our in-network and out-of-network deductibles for both individuals and families, but there's no change to the out-of-pocket maximum. I did provide an analysis of our district-wide deductible out-of-pocket limits that show that we have 9.5% of our individual employees who have met or exceeded the current deductible, but none of our employees who purchase family coverage have met the family deductible. And there are a couple other sheets I've given you there as well to give you some more information about this agenda item. And so with that being said, on behalf of the insurance committee, we request approval of option 1 of our renewal of health providers.
Okay, This is Susan Benjamin. Thank you, Dr. Diaz, for that update, that information. I need a motion to renew option 1 of the health providers for the 2021 school year.
This is Lene Almy, so moved.
Okay, and a second.
This is Dr. Elora Diaz. I second that.
Thank you both. This is Susan Benjamin. Are there questions or comments regarding this option in the renewal? No questions or comments? Okay, I'm not hearing any. Okay, with that, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Thank you very much, Dr. Diaz. This is Susan Benjamin again. We are on to the second point, which is performance-based budgeting.
Yes, but if you just give me a minute here, I'll switch the screen to bring up the PowerPoint. Let's see, where is it? Oh, here it is. Can you all see the PowerPoint now? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just wanted to do just a review of where we've been, and once again, thank everybody that participated in the performance-based budgeting process. We had over 30 team members that were part of the performance-based budgeting team, from support staff, teachers, coordinators, administrators on the team that participated in a 2.5-day process where different department leads or program leads presented their budgeting package to the team and provided some alternative solutions to funding. So at the end of the 2.5-day process, what the packages were ranked, and I'm going to just kind of glance over this. So we had different recommendations. The first one's a current level funding, meaning there would be no recommended changes to their current program packages. The 3 packages that were recommended for 100% funding were special education, instructional staff, business services, and athletics. Those were recommended with a 5% reduction or 95% funding or class size, custodians, MIS department, nurses, plant services, student services, itinerant staff, transportation, and warehouse. And then there were a few others that were recommended to be at the 10% recovery level or funded at 90%. And those were assessment and accountability, CNI core, gifted education, human resources, media centers, peer recruitment, social workers, special areas, and substitutes. With the way these programs were ranked, and we had set a 5% goal of cutting the budget, which was about 2.1 million. The way these programs fell, the cost deferment to the performance-based budgeting team's package saved more than the 2.1 recommended goal, or it would be 2.8 million. Then at an additional governing board meeting, the board had an opportunity to rank the packages based on the program packages they received and the information they listened to from program managers that presented at a couple of board meetings. And this was the way the packages were ranked. So class size social workers and SPED instructional staff received 100% funding. And then the 5% recovery level, business service, MIS, nurses, plant services, special areas, student services, and warehouse. And then we had the 10% recovery level or 90% funded assessment, athletics, CNI core, custodians, gifted education, media centers, peer recruitment, substitutes, transportation, and unfortunately, human resources did not receive enough funds to be funded. But you know, it was it was a good process for everyone to participate and kind of see how individuals rank the programs. It's difficult, as I explained at a previous meeting, it's difficult to make these decisions because all these programs affect our staff in one way or another, whether it is to streamline what they're doing and redistribute some of their job responsibilities, or in some cases, reduce the number of employees. It impacts all of us in one way, shape, or form. And although there are the program managers were either directors or coordinators that put the programs together, they also have an impact not only to the district office, but to our school sites. So when we're looking at social workers are at each of our school sites, not at the district level. We have one lead social worker, but the impact would be felt at a school site. The same thing with custodians or with our peer staff, nurses, everything touches the school in one way or another. So keeping that in mind, Cabinet took a look at the implications. So again, the goal was to look at the packages and make a recommendation to decrease our expenditures by 5% or by $2.1 million with the intent to offset the decrease in the budget of $1.4 million, as well as projecting a decrease in enrollment of 300 students in the 2021 school year. And we also knew there was going to be an increase to insurance premiums, minimum wage, and ASRS. So taking that all into account, we are trying to be proactive into moving into next school year. Just to keep in mind that when we're making this suggested cuts to different programs, it's not going to save or cause any savings in this fiscal year, in the 1920 school year. This is what will change going into next year, which will help with our expenditures. So it's not going to cause us to have an additional $2.1 million in our budget this year. I don't want that to seem like we're having an additional carry forward of $2.1 million. That's not how this works. This is for next school year. In other words, we're going to be spending less money in the 2021 school year if we make these changes. And so with that, we looked at the different packages, and I, on behalf of Cabinet, would like to recommend the following. We want to fully fund social workers based on lots of anecdotal information as well as data that it's evident that trauma-sensitive care is needed across the district from the comments made by administrators and staff. So in order to fully fund that, we would need an additional $53,702. We would like to fully fund warehouse. The cost deferment is minimal. It's $13,374, and it causes salary reduction for all 5 support staff employees in that plan. Did not feel comfortable with cutting people's salaries because we're not really doing that with any other package. So the amount is minimal. Fully fund gifted education, because this is a program that the district has been trying to strengthen over the last several years. And so we do not want to go backwards by reducing the position in gifted education. So we want to maintain the course, and that would require another $53,702. And then we would use indirect cost funds to fully fund assessment and accountability as the cost is minimal. It's $27,425, and it places additional strain on school sites for mandated assessments. So in the assessment and accountability package, there was a plan to either reduce stipends to the test administrators or to remove the testing team, and that would cause hardship at the schools. And so I think we can assume that cost through indirect costs so that we don't have to cut the assessment and accountability. Now, some of the packages like MIS and assessment and accountability already were able to give us some cost savings heading into next year by changing some of the things they're doing within their departments, by eliminating unnecessary software, or I think in the case of assessment and accountability, they were not going to have to print packages, print assessments, because unfortunately, Mozilla is going to be fully online, so we don't have to print a lot of items. So there's lots of cost savings built into their program packages, just in the way they put it together. And then if we use the cost deferment of about $488,000 towards class size, we need a little more time. I don't think there's going to be a change to the class size numbers, just because that gets us up to, we are not suggesting to increase class size based on this. Most of our class sizes are under the maximum amount of the student ratio. So if all expected students enroll for the 2021 school year, there would be a rise for about 12% of classrooms if all expected students return. And we don't see that often. If there are some class sizes, as we have done this school year, that are above the recommended ratio, we look for alternatives to provide support. Sometimes the support comes in the form of an instructional assistant. If from the beginning, when we do our staffing and classes are larger than anticipated, we would add an additional FTE to be prepared for that. We would, as we did this school year, monitor class size throughout the school year to make sure that no one is above. But as you can see, when we did this presentation, there were, the current FTEs were 24-1. There was 20.6 in the minimum, 27.4 maximum. And if we went to the higher number, that's what the numbers would be. We just kind of did this if we did the recovery package. We do not anticipate the FTE numbers with this additional funds that are available to increase the classroom size. So what we would like to do is recommend ranking the cost deferment. The original PBB team recommendation was 2.8 million, less the cost to fully fund warehouse, which was a 13,000 plus, less the cost to fully fund gifted education, which is 53,702, less the cost to fully fund social workers, which is 132,908. That the revised PBB team cost deferment would be 2.6 million, which is still well above the recommended 5% goal of 2.1 million. So we have an additional 488,776 that we can apply towards class size. Additionally, one of the things that happens, and I know Dr. Diaz explained this before about our skinny schools, it is moving the class size ratio will not help us in either direction. It won't help us moving it lower or moving it higher because our schools are so small that we only have one or two, and some very rare exceptions, 3 teachers per grade level. And so we don't have enough students to move that bar up or down when we're talking about class size. So I think the additional funds will help us maintain, as well as knowing that moving into the next school year, because unfortunately our schools have been closed, in some sense we have saved money. We don't have, our utilities will probably go down. We also have savings in substitute teachers and some other areas such as supplies. So we do have the funds moving into next school year to maintain the current class size in combination with this recommended plan of the performance-based budgeting that administration would like to recommend. Are there any questions from me or?
This is Susan Benjamin. Are there questions or comments from board members?
This is Lene Elmi. I have a couple questions. So first, I just want to clarify that I have this list correct for those that are being fully funded. Would be SPED instructional staff, business services, athletics, social workers, warehouse, gifted, and then assessment?
That is correct.
Okay. And then my other question is on class size. The $488,000 that would be put towards class size is going to make it end up being funded somewhere between 95% and 100. Is that correct?
I think it'll be very close to the 100%.
Yeah. So I was just trying to do the math. It looks like maybe like 98%.
That is
funded.
correct. Yes.
Okay. And so we would need like another 300,000 to get it to fully funded. Is
Yes,
that correct?
That is correct.
All right. I think that's all I needed clarified. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah, this is Susan Benjamin. I do want to say, because when we did this on, I think it was March 5th, it was late. It was like 10 o'clock and we didn't really have a chance to discuss what we had done. And clearly we didn't have a chance to do a second round, or we would have added HR in some fashion.
Yes, I know.
So I'm hoping that we have more conversation about this, because I think it's really important. So I'm looking for other comments or questions from the board.
Just one comment. This is Dr. Laura Diaz. I do appreciate the cabinet going back and comparing the two lists and doing your best to really make sure we're fully funding as much as possible. One question that I do have, Dr. Hidalgo, you mentioned that we have some cost savings due to the school closures. Do you have an idea how much that is and how much we could allocate towards the class size?
Yes, this is Dr. Hidalgo. Right now, what we're looking at is approximately about $1 million, approximately. But that's just based on anecdotal information. So we'll have a clear picture maybe towards the end of this month. And again, it's really based on utilities, services that we're not using right now, such as substitute teachers and some of the orders for supplies that we're not using. Those are the salaries all remain the same because everyone's getting paid till the end of the school year. So we're not saving any money in that sense. So in a sense, it's good. We do anticipate keeping class size as is, Dr. Diaz. I don't anticipate any changes to class size based on this.
Thank you for that clarification.
This is Lene Almy again. I have some comments since you're looking for some.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I just wanted to kind of echo Dr. Diaz's comments to thank the cabinet for going back and comparing the two lists. I know that when we originally did it, I asked you to kind of prioritize the recommendations that came from the budgeting team because they had spent so much time on this and really have the knowledge. So I appreciate that you did that. I also appreciate that you did take into account some of our recommendations. I know that social workers was one that the board really felt like should be fully funded. And I think that is even more true now than it was a month ago. We don't really know what kind of trauma students are going to be coming back to school with in the fall. And I think that our social workers are going to play an even more important role than they already played. So I think that that one is really an important one for us. And then I would like to just agree with your decision on warehouse funding. I would really hate to see any kind of salary reduction for any employees at this point. So I'm kind of sorry that we missed that in our original analysis of the packages. I guess one more question that I had was just on gifted education. So it was funded at the 90% level in both of the recommendations, but is being put forward at 100%. And I can see that your explanation there was that we have been trying to strengthen our gifted program for some time. Was there anything else that went into that decision?
It was more about that as we move forward, we want to maintain what we already started, knowing that we need to strengthen it even more. And so it wasn't feasible to go backwards in this case by reducing a position. So
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Other comments?
I have a question for this is Dr. Elora Diaz. I have a question for Dr. Vic Diaz, or any of the other cabinet who might know the answer to this. Do you hear, just like anecdotally speaking, does this process seem to be helpful for the departments themselves? Are they able to, because I imagine going through your budget so rigorously, you have to start thinking innovatively, and you have to think perhaps about things you wouldn't have considered to make things run efficiently. Have you heard anything specific from the staff in those lines?
Yeah, this is Vic Diaz. I'd be happy to speak to that. Yes, I think anecdotally and experientially, there's a lot of benefits to this process. So just sort of speaking for myself as a department lead, there's program evaluation that's tied into this process. And that program evaluation is critical in any kind of continuous improvement process, where you really have to step back and think about what are we accomplishing, what are our priorities, what are our goals. And when we look at our organization development work out of Action Team and out of the strategic plan, you know, it's a key thing that we need to be implementing with rigor with all of our departments. And so the PBB process lends itself to that, where each of these departments have to take some time to really think about what are our goals? Are we measuring them? How are we doing with them? And then using that data to make some key decisions about whether that's the staff that they have or the resources that they have. I think the other piece where this has been very helpful is it's brought more people into the fold of really understanding some of the tensions and the complications with our particular budget, our particular context. Our discussion around staffing of schools, for instance. I've worked in a few districts. I don't think we've had as many, I've never seen a district have as many people at the table to discuss class size. But that's needed in our district because we have these tall, skinny schools. I think also the idea of setting priorities and bringing people into this, it's also illuminated this idea that if you're going to fully fund this thing, it means you're going to have to cut these other things. That money, you know, it doesn't grow on trees. It's also better illuminated the challenges we do have with enrollment and decreases in our enrollment that are outpacing additions to our pure pupil funding. And that it's brought more people into the fold. I think it's given people a deeper understanding. It certainly comes with frustrations, and it certainly comes with some challenges. It feels like every time we've done this process, and it's been 2 years, but I've now been involved, I think, in 7 different votes. It just feels clearer and more consistent as we're going along. And so I've definitely seen that anecdotally, experientially. We've seen the benefits of using this type of a process in order to really understand, you know, this is the pie. The pie is not going to get any bigger, but in fact, it probably has to get a little bit smaller. How do you want to slice that? And what are the different trade-offs we'll make? And what does that tell us about our values? What does that tell us about our priorities as a district?
Thank you. That's really helpful to hear.
And Dr. Diaz, this is Dr. Hidalgo. I would like to echo what Dr. Diaz just said. And this is our 2nd year doing this process, and we're not there yet 100%, but we are definitely refining the process. And I think this year there was more ahas on how this is really tied to program evaluation and what we should be doing and how to redistribute what we're doing in a more efficient manner. And I just see the process getting better and easier for those that participate. This year, there were several folks that had not participated in the past, and it was the same thing last year. It was eye-opening to them to see what goes on in the district, because everybody's so involved in their day-to-day responsibilities. They don't really know how everyone else contributes to the support and education of our students. And so they were really very, very happy to participate in the process, and just we're so glad to learn more about what we do as a district to support our students and our community and our staff too. So thank you.
Thank you.
And sorry, this is Vicky. If I could just add one more thing, because what Dr. Duggo said just triggered something in my head that I just want to share. Over the past 2 years, I have been the person whose packages have been completely cut out of the budget unintentionally. Last year it was substitutes. The way that the vote happened zeroed out our substitute budget, which, you know, obviously we got to have substitute teachers. And then this year with the governing board is the HR department. Having been in that chair twice, on the one hand, it can be a little frustrating. And because even though we put it back in the budget, I've never introduced a budget package that hasn't been cut by 10%. Every single budget package I touch turns into the 90% package, to the point at which I don't know if I got to call in a sub next year. I don't know if we got to bring somebody else up from the HR team to come in and deliver these things. And it's frustrating. There's a lot of frustration with it, but at the same time, the next morning in each of these cases, meeting with my team, the real message has been, we know we're doing things of value. We know we're doing things well. How can we do them even better now? So that next year when we're in this position and we're making clear, these are the reasons why we're recommending the recommendations in our budgets, that's going to resonate with people. Seeing HR get cut by 10%, it hurts. It means we're losing a team member. We are going to be splitting duties at the receptionist desk, where our receptionist isn't just a full-time receptionist greeting people at the door, answering the phone and being the face and voice of the district. They're also going to be doing HR duties. At the same time, if that is a cut we need to make in order to support things like social workers, you know, we're all in this together. We're united as one, and understand that. And so if anything, this sharpens my focus as a department head in terms of making sure that the work we're doing, people are noticing, and it's having an actual impact on people, so that when we say this is what we do and this is why it's important, people are nodding along and not wondering, you know, where we've been, so to speak. So I've definitely benefited from this by being on the outside and kind of getting like the shortest end of the stick in each of the passes that we've gone with this.
Thank you for sharing that. I, for one, can say I am greatly appreciative of the work that the HR department has done. And, you know, I think it's evident the hard work put in with our retention rates and our ability to fill our classrooms with high quality teachers in the beginning of every year. I think that's an anomaly. Well, I know that's an anomaly given the state of education in Arizona. So thank you for the work you do.
This is Susan Benjamin, and I'll just chime in at this point. You know, I appreciate all the efforts that have gone on, and will be asking for, since Dr. Hidalgo will not be here next year, to have, and I'll ask for this at the end of the meeting again, the recommendations for next year, what you've learned and what you expect to do differently next year in the PVP process, so you can pass that on. Because I think it's important to look at the timelines, and I want to speak to Dr. Vick in terms of, we certainly would not have wanted to leave out HR at all. That was an embarrassment, but it was after 10 o'clock. And typically what would have happened is we would have had discussion and then a second round where we would have been able to deal with that issue, because that's certainly not at all what we intended. Of course, you know how we went through the process and then it just shows up. So we would have had to have made some adjustments in how we put our numbers down for each one of those recovery levels or areas. So, but I also want to say that I believe, and I'm just going to speak about some of the generalities. I believe that there's still monies to be found. Yeah, I was an assistant director and director of special ed for 13 years. And I look at outcome, and that's what Dr. was talking about. And I'm still waiting for that information. I have not received it yet about outcome for kids, because we look at the amount of money that we're spending in the special education area, and it's always a lot of money. It doesn't matter what district you're in, special education is expensive. But I'm always looking for outcome. And the way, one of the things that was given to us was about compliance and about how compliant, which is good. You need to be compliant because then you're not redoing work. And that saves time and money and resources. And it was also spoken about the fact that that a lot of the goals are being met. And that's really just part of what special education is about. The way it works is that if children aren't meeting goals, then you're to reconvene the team so that you can adjust the goals so that they're meeting, most of their goals, that they're reasonable. And so I'm still looking for outcome. I'm looking for children exited. Did the speech language pathologist and the number that were there actually see outcome that reduced the number of children with RTIC issues that were in special education? Special education is not a death sentence, so to speak. You don't go in special ed and stay there. That's not the intent for most kids. Now, there are some kids that have very multiple disabilities or a lot of different issues, and they're going to be in special education from the time they're found eligible until they transition out, sometimes at age 22. And I understand that completely, but there are many children who can be exited because our job as special educators is to provide specialized instruction and level the playing field, so to speak, so those children can access the general curriculum and be in the regular classroom and not be in special education. And so I really hope that in the future, there will be a real deep dive into what special education looks like in Phoenix Elementary. And I won't go into all the details. I've spoken to several of Cabinet and Dr. Weeks about some of my concerns, and they're well aware of them. But I am still looking for that information because it's hard for me to want to vote for instructional staff as it is when I don't know what the outcome is. And it's hard for me to want to reduce the itinerant staff, the psychologist and the speech language pathologist, OT, PT, wherever it comes from, not knowing the outcome. So that makes it very challenging for me. Okay. And I think it's really kind of unfair to both of those groups. So the other thing I'll say is last year I was really into the media center, and I really believe that libraries and the media center, are something that our children really need to have access to and know how to use. But I also know this year that we've got schools with 300 children, and I think they really can share a media specialist. So I understand where that's going, but I'm having a hard time with the area of the special areas. And so maybe Dr. Hidalgo, I'm sitting here, I pulled my book and I'm looking at the changes that were going to occur. We'd lose 5 teachers, and there's a lot of things that are going to be lost. And that's one of the things that I've always been most proud of in Phoenix Elementary is that we have provided that opportunity for children, and we celebrate them at school board meetings, and they're celebrated in their schools throughout the year. And I see a lot of delivery model changes, performances will be fewer. I see a lot of changes, and that really, really concerns me because that really, you want to talk about impacting kids, that impacts kids a lot. So if you could speak to that a little bit, I would greatly appreciate it. And anyone else on the board who has something to say, because I'm really struggling with a 10% reduction.
Yes, Ms. Benjamin, this is Dr. Hidalgo. Yes, I agree that it is difficult to make any of these decisions. And I understand what you're saying because it directly impacts students. I don't unfortunately have the dollar amount in front of me right now regarding the special area reduction.
It would be, if we did the 95%, we would, the difference between that and the 90% is around $155,000. Because it's the difference between 2.5 teachers and 5 teachers.
Right.
It's
And
the loss
so-
of five teachers. That's a lot of teachers to be lost. And we're talking about music, we're talking about physical education, all, and yet we put athletics in that first category. It's really hard because I know there's children that come to school, and one of the things that's most important to them is like the drumming over at Emerson. That was a really, really motivating and something that made those kids really proud.
And I would agree, we fully support our special area classes, which is why we still have special area classes in the different areas, art, PE, music, and instrumental music. And again, because our schools are small, we have certain schools that have a full-time PE teacher, art teacher, and music teacher that are not teaching a full load of courses. And so they are being used to do other things on the campus, such as enrichment activities, tutoring, supporting classroom instruction, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it's more about moving the folks. So I know the way the package was presented makes it look like it's going to impact the courses themselves. It will not impact the classes the students are receiving. It is more about how we assign the folks that we currently have, especially at our smaller sites. And Dr. Diaz has been working on a plan on how to make these reassignments so that no one campus is impacted more than the others. When we're looking at our smaller schools, we don't want them to take the brunt of these changes. And so Dr. Diaz has been talking to Dr. Brown and what this would look like. So the intent is not to take away any special area classes for the students. And it's kind of difficult to explain without showing you, but.
Well, let me just interrupt you because I'm reading the 10% level, and it says a delivery model will require a significant shift to grade band or content experts. Sites will need to adjust their master schedules to accommodate the larger district scheduling needs, as well as to account for teacher planning time. And that's part of what you're speaking about here.
Yes.
Performances will be fewer in number and incorporate multiple campuses into 2 regional performances for the year. And so there will be less performances. Students and teachers will not participate in out-of-district events. And of course, then they said there'd be an increase in repair. And I understand that completely. And so if you look at the 5%, they still talk about that being the same kind of thing. But I wonder when you have that many more staff, if that really they'd really be able to find ways to make that different, make that change. It just kind of it made us unique. It's something that we were able to be very proud of, and this is a big reduction for them.
I understand.
Anybody else?
Dr. Diaz, did you want to add anything, or Dr. McLaughlin?
Yeah, this is Vic. Yeah, when I look at the PBB right now, the way that it is, clearly the HR cut hurts, but that will certainly be the most difficult thing for us to do. Anticipating that, before spring break, did meet with Dr. Brown and I both met, and we started to play out as many innovative solutions as we could to what a reduction of 5 teachers would look like in a way that would not impact course offerings and in a way that would not impact opportunities for students. To Dr. Algo's point, we were also looking at that in the context of the media center cuts and even potential cuts to class size to make sure that all 3 of those cuts wouldn't hit the same school. And so we can distribute some of this out. So going back to media centers, one of the ideas that we've had is maybe we don't have a media clerk getting shared between schools, but we reduce the FTE number of a media clerk at a certain school, and we job share that with another position. So we can keep people at a 1.0, we keep people at full time, but we don't have the media center open throughout the day. because that person may be providing duty somewhere else. If we distribute that amongst several schools, we'll still get the 1.0 reduction that we're looking for. But now we won't have the idea that the media center is closed all day Tuesday at your school because your media center is at another school. We're trying to look at special areas in the very same way. And so looking at our special areas right now, we're staffed very equitably in the sense that schools that need the most are getting the most. So if I look at a school like Dunbar, they actually have the same number of special area teachers as Capital and as Edison, schools that are significantly bigger than Dunbar. And so we need to go into those. We need to continue to keep equity in mind, but we also have to look for other places where we can build some more efficiencies, some more job sharing, some more opportunities to supplement somebody so we're not taking them from a 1.0 FTE to a 0.8 or a 0.6, but at the same time, consolidating our positions in a way so we start thinking differently. This is a necessity because of the sizes of our schools right now. When we're looking at our special areas, we're also looking at student interest. It's important for us to recognize that there are, for instance, some band sections in the district where the band is meeting for an hour, doing an hour-long class, but there's only 6 students in the classroom. And when I first saw that, I remember thinking, is it a rock band or is it a jazz band? I mean, 6 people in a band, that's not much of a symphonic band. And so we're definitely looking at that and looking at master schedules then to say, well, if there's only 6 kids in 5th grade and there's only 5 kids in 6th grade, what are some things we can do in the master schedule so that we can consolidate classrooms? And as we start to consolidate those classes, that's where we'll start to find inefficiencies that we can make more efficient, as opposed to just widespread cutting out a certain special area or a certain program. So even when we look at the budget package as it's written, I think the discussions I've had with Dr. Brand have taken us beyond some of the things that are written in those in order to bring down the impact that we would see. But I don't want to pretend for a minute, though, that this is going to be easy. This is going to be a very difficult, complicated, complex cut. But if we're going to fully fund the other things that we're fully funding, it's a cut that's not necessary.
Well, I hear you, and I understand that there's smaller schools, and because of that, then there's smaller classes of kids that are doing band or whatever it might be. But the one of the biggest differences is the delivery model will require a significant shift. And I know that's part of what you're talking about, but I feel like that in this case, they're taking our kids are taking a big hit here. And like I said, it's just something that we've given up the media center, as you say, not being open all the time. And I would hope that there'd be a creative way to keep them open so that children can access things even if the media clerk is not there. And I hope that happens, because I think it's important for the kids to have that access and to go to the media center on a regular basis and have a scheduled time for that, at least in the K-6 grades.
So Ms. Benjamin, what we can do is make an adjustment to Cabinet's recommendation to move to the 95% funding for special areas, because we do have a cushion, knowing we've been closed, and that will just cut into our savings, our projected deferred expenses for next year.
I'm speaking for myself here. I just have a really strong feeling about the special areas and what happens with art and the music. And
I understand.
And so I don't know what the rest of the board thinks about that.
This is Dr. Elora Diaz. I agree with you, Ms. Benjamin. I'm also wondering how in the future we can utilize and leverage, hold on just 1 second. How we can utilize technology to fill some of the gaps that we have. Sorry, to fill some of the gaps that we have that might be inevitable for instance, is there a way, and I'm speaking beyond said at this point, but is there a way that if a school needed an additional social worker, we could utilize Zoom and bring in a social worker from another school? The same could be true with an elective teacher, and the actual management of the in-class is facilitated by a lab facilitator or an instructional staff. So you are cutting costs there, but still providing those students with a quality educator or an adult in a certain role that they might need. So it's just something to think about, you know, especially since our staff is getting used to technology. And I think post COVID-19, it is probably a smart idea to start thinking about how we can integrate and leverage technology moving forward in innovative ways.
Anyone else have any, this is Susan Benjamin. Anybody else have any comments about moving the special areas from 90 to 95?
This is Lene Almy. Dr. Hidalgo, could you clarify, would that $155,000 come from the class size portion, or would that just be a reduction of less than the 2.1 million?
It would be a reduction of less than the 2.1 million.
Anyone else? This is Susan Benjamin. Anyone else? Have any comments about any of this? Not just what I said, but anything else?
Madam Chair, I just want to make sure that we are clear here.
Is this Dr. Weeks? Sounds like Dr. Weeks.
Yeah, sorry about that. So we've spoken about the additional $300,000 required from Mrs. Almy on shoring up the class size so that it is basically fully funded. And Dr. Hidalgo, to move from the 90 to the 95, in addition to the $300,000, the district would need to come up with to fully fund the PTR, the pupil teacher ratio for next year. How much money would we add to that?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last thing you said.
If we made an adjustment to the special area section going from 90 to 95, there's a dollar amount. I'm thinking somewhere around 75,000. We have $300,000 that we will need to pull to shore up the pupil teacher ratio to make sure that we don't adjust class size for next year. That was a point that Mrs. Almy made earlier. And correct. We're talking about adjusting the special areas for next year. What the board and I need to be aware of what that dollar amount is, so we can make sure that it's clear that we're making changes that would
reduce our deferred, yes.
It would reduce your deferred and just add to the, or reduce the bottom line savings, is what I'm trying to say.
Correct. It is approximately $75,000 in addition to the class size adjustment.
And so do we have are we saying estimated $300,000 plus 75? So we're somewhere between reducing our PVB savings by $375,000.
That is correct.
And where would that money come from?
We would have to use our savings from this school year, moving into next year.
And would that impact conversations going forward with salary and benefits?
It could, yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure the board's clear on how these numbers shake out.
Hi, this is Lene Almy. I actually feel less clear now. So, sorry, the 300,000, what number is that?
That was the amount we were referring to regarding the class size, to keep it as is, which is, we're at the 98%. And then it was regarding this slide when we were talking about it.
So the 488,000?
Yes,
Okay. So is it 488,000 or is it 300,000?
we're talking about the difference between the 488 and the amount needed to get to the 100%.
Okay. So to get to 100%, we only need the 300,000.
Correct.
Okay. And then based on the math I did, and I think Ms. Benjamin that you did as well, it looks like the special area jump from 90 to 95 is 155,000.
Right, that's what I did. Yeah, approximately, yeah.
Okay, so if we have this 488,000 that is additional funds available to go toward class size, can we do the 300,000 that's necessary to get to 100% plus the 175 and be at 475?
No, I don't have, I'm sorry, I'm at home and I did not have my notebook with me, so I cannot refer to these numbers. I apologize. I should have had it with me, but I don't have them. I don't want to misspeak on the dollar amount, but basically whatever our deferred amount, if we're making changes to the special area, it will cut into our deferred amount for next school year. So we will be saving less in the 2021 school year.
So I guess my question was, can we use some of the $488,000 that is currently labeled as additional funds available to go to class size? Can we use some of that funding for the special areas, or does that then mean that we don't have enough funding to make the changes we need for class size?
We need a little bit more for special areas to make the change.
Okay.
But you're saying that there is monies to be found based on the fact that we've had our schools closed.
That is correct.
That would actually be considered a carryover?
Yes.
And what's our carryover now for going into next year?
Right now, before we anticipate anything, we're looking at approximately 2 million right now.
And so you think even if it's not $1 million, it's 700,000, then we could use, and we could continue to have class size be as it is and spend a little bit of extra for the 2.5 teachers, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so this is Lene Ami. I made the original motion. Can I amend the motion? Or what's the process?
Did we make a motion?
Do is you would amend your motion to make
Okay.
change to cabinet
Wait, did we make a motion on this?
No, I don't
No,
remember you.
that hasn't
doing it.
happened yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't
that was
think
the last thing.
Dr. Hidalgo has not recommended to us yet, and we probably shouldn't have had a conversation at this point. Sorry.
Okay.
Are you ready for me to make a recommendation?
So go ahead and make a recommendation, and then Lene, Ms. Alamy, you can go through and we'll adjust based on that. Unless somebody has anything, well, we can talk more after we vote, after we make the motion and the second, and then we can talk more. My apologies.
Okay. Cabinet Administration recommends that the governing board approve the performance-based budget package as recommended in the presentation on page 7, which shows which packages to add in addition to the performance-based budgeting team's recommendation, and to also include the special area package at the 95% funding instead of the 90. I know it's a big long one, but.
Thank you very much. I need a motion.
This is Lene.
Just a moment. So
Okay.
that was a whole lot of words that I didn't catch. Dr. Hidalgo, just so that we can move forward with the voting, could you please just email me that language and I'll put it into the minutes and then we can move on with the vote.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
This is Lene Almy. I move approval of the performance-based budget line item ranking as recommended by administration with the change from special area teachers from 90% to 95%.
And a second, please.
Dr. Laura Diaz, I second that.
Now, are there any other comments or questions based on that motion?
This is just Dr. Diaz clarifying question. Sorry, still trying to wrap my head around this. So moving up to the 95%, we're getting those additional funds from the carryover, or where are they coming from?
We're just not going to save as much money, basically. So it's going to, next year when we move over, we're not going to save as much money. And so it really is going to, so the carry forward, that is all separate. Remember, when we're looking at these packages, we're looking at our expenditures for next school year. So this is really about our expenditures for next school year. So instead of saving the $2.1 million, we're going to save less than that. We'll save $2 million. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? This is Susan Benjamin. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Thank you all very much. Okay, we're on to Mr. Lind, discuss a first reading.
Yes, good morning. This is Tom Lind, Assistant to Superintendent for Policy and Strategy. Good morning, governing board members, cabinet, and those in the audience. Today, I would like to bring forward 3 policies to open for first reading. These policies are included in the current Arizona School Board Association's Policy Service Advisory. And the policies are GCO, evaluation of professional staff members. And I'd like to clarify that that includes psychologists, principals, and teachers. JFAA, admission of resident students, as well as JFAB, tuition admission of non-resident students. Considering the circumstances of our time, I would like to acknowledge that as we provide review teams, we'll be working virtually, conducting Zoom meetings to read and review and revise the policies. I could attempt to bring them up onto the screen if the board would like, or I could just speak to them.
Does anyone need that, or can you just go follow along and have?
My comments can be brief.
Okay.
I would suggest that GCO is the most important policy, and we need to remember that the Arizona School Boards Association gives us all the opportunity to write policy to reflect the needs of our district. And particularly with the evaluation for teachers and principals, we'll need to ensure that we not only fulfill the requirements of the law, but also of our final year of the PISA grant. And so we'll need to take a look at that. The biggest conversation point will be in the percentages of student assessment and the value and the percentage of the observation instrument. And when you read the document, you'll notice that ASBA compared our current document to their recommendations, and some of the items that are relevant to our processes have been redlined. Our committee will definitely need to review that to ensure that we provide the policy in place to reflect our particular procedures. And then policies JFAA and JFAB are primarily housekeeping. Those policies are going to reflect the documentation that families need to provide in terms of proof of residence as they register their students for the district. They're slightly different for non-resident students or resident students. And so we'll have teams take a look at those. But I would like to open these up for first reading, and we'll begin review teams and bring them back to the board in a timely manner.
This is Susan Benjamin. Thank you, Mr. Lind. Are there questions or comments?
Hi, this is Dr. Laura Diaz. I have a question on GCO. It looks like there's quite a few changes. So you said one of the most significant changes is the percentage allocation on the evaluation. What other implications do these changes have? I see there's some stuff added in here for evaluation of principals and a section for teacher evaluations that's been added in.
Yes, we need to remember that ASBA has redlined many of the items that we actually need to put back into our particular policy. The grant typically holds us to a higher standard. And so we'll need to have conversations with folks at MAKISA how we want to clarify and move forward with the difference in the Arizona legislature regarding the percentage of the assessment, which I believe is now down to 25 to 33%. Our grant typically holds us to a 50-50 comparison for the LOI observation and the student achievement. So we'll need to have some clarification on how we want to move forward with that part particularly.
And thank you for that explanation. In getting recommendations for the percentage allocation, are we locked into the 50? I remember asking this question many board meetings ago. Are we locked into, you said it was 50-50, or the weight of the assessment is 50%?
Yes. We have been following the guidelines of the grant thus far, and that's why we'll need to have conversations with those from MAKISA to identify if there is any opportunity to change that. I don't have an answer for that yet.
Okay, yeah, that's something I'm very interested in just hearing more about. Like, I definitely understand the rationale to make sure we're looking at testing, and it is a vital data point. And we should absolutely look at it. However, I personally do not believe we should allocate 50%. That is quite high given, you know, you could be the hardest working teacher and do everything you can, but on test day, there are so many variables that you can't control, and you know, growth is much more important. So I don't know the distinction between the 50% and focus on growth, but yeah, that's just my 2 cents. I'm very passionate about that specific item.
Yeah, I certainly understand, and I acknowledge that I've heard your statement. The grant, when originally written, was written at a higher standard, and so that's why we'll need to have the conversation with the folks at MAKISA to see what level we need to land on to ensure that we still receive the funding for the compensation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Susan Benjamin, and I just to piggyback on what Dr. Diaz just said, I believe, if my recall is correct, that the state requires that you use 33%. Is that correct?
Yes, you'll see that in the language.
Maybe Dr. McLaughlin can tell us, instead of the 50% that MAKISA requires.
Yes, you'll see that as part of the language in the draft that we received from ASBA.
Yes, and so,
And
Dr.
so
Diaz, you can adjust that but because of the grant, we have followed that. We also have followed, you know, many more teacher observations in the evaluation system too, because of MAKISA, although you all have been instrumental in whittling those down to be more manageable, which
yes, yes, that is correct. We started with 5 observations and moved them down to 2. Yes. Mm-hmm.
which is very good.
So we'll need to have, conversations with all the relevant parties. We'll certainly include the PEC Association and those that are impacted by GCO particularly, to ensure that the voice of the psychologists and the principals and the teachers, are included in this conversation. And we need to remember that, and if I'm correct in my thinking, this 2021 school year is the last year of the MAKISA grant. And so a year from now, we would need to come back and likely revise the policy again, should we want to make changes with any decisions that are made for the 2021 school year.
Any other comments or questions for Mr. Lind?
This is Lene Almy. I have a few. Can I just start with a clarifying question that I think I have the answer to based on this, but is this version just a straight from ASBA version at the moment?
Yes, it is. It's directly what came to us in the Policy Service Advisory, comparing their work to our current policy.
Okay, and so that would explain like the section that says insert district language here.
Yes. Districts, districts will vary on how they define non-performance, and so we have the opportunity to insert our language.
And so when that district language has been inserted, will we see this for a second reading or another first reading?
It would typically come back as a second reading, but as we've done before, we can always provide that to the governing board in terms of an update.
Okay. And then I think this was also clear, but it sounds like you have not had any of your policy team look at this yet.
No, no one has looked at it yet.
Okay, and so then my other questions also all deal with the percentage in item B under teacher performance evaluation. So this says between 20% and 33%. So if the state is requiring 33%, can we even do a 20 to 33?
I believe the legislation gives school districts a range, 20 to 33%. So, there may be variation from district to district on, is it 25%, is it 33%? And so that's the conversation we need to have with our folks at MAKISA for this final year of the grant. Will we need to still comply with the 50-50 ratio for the evaluation and the student assessment data?
Okay, and then my last question is on, it says to include quantitative data on student academic progress. And so that feels pretty general to me on whether that is proficiency measurement or a growth measurement. I feel like both of those measure academic progress. Yeah. And then also, I don't see where it has to be a specific assessment that they're measuring from. So yeah. I don't know if that's outlined somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, we'll need to clarify that as we work through this. It's a calculation that results in the real score, and those items would be included in that calculation.
And again, those are delineated by MAKISA.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Lind?
Hey, Tom, this is Larry.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Yes, I'm not sleeping here. To Dr. Elora Diaz's point, some months ago, we did have a conversation about MAKISA having a request for a waiver from the U.S. Department of Education. I think we all remember.
Yes.
Is on deck. And we did hear back that there was some movement on that. It might be time to bring MAKISA back, or at least have a board report with an update on specifically the MAKISA information with regards to policy GCO as it relates to the grant. Because like I said, I think there's been some movement on this.
Right, we certainly can request that information from MAKISA.
This is Dr. Hidalgo. There was movement before school closure on a plan to use some of the LOI element. This is for teachers, on the LOI elements to be included as part of the assessment score. So that was put together as a proposal. We did not hear back if that was a final adjustment to that. But there's a way to make up that 50% using elements that are already scored. It's similar to what we do for certified staff that do not have enough students to calculate their individual real scores. So there's a way to do it. The other thing we have to keep in mind is that the calculation of the real score is going to be totally different now because we have no assessment for this school year. So it almost seems like we need to wait a little longer before we make some changes to GCO for this school year.
Yes.
Yes, this is Larry again. I'm also, to the board here, I'm also hearing that some school districts may be required to adopt some language on how teachers will be evaluated in this school year because of COVID-19. And so as we get more details that unfold, we'll be bringing that forward to the governing board. So I just wanted to just put the board on notice that there might be some language specific to teacher evaluation.
Dr. Weeks, I can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me and see me? So we may have to bring something to the board specific to teacher evaluations for this year under the COVID-19 crisis. That's completely separate from the GCO policy. Hopefully, is that better? Okay, all right, thanks.
Yeah.
So there's going to be some more moving parts here.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? This is Susan Benjamin. Anything else? Okay, thank you, Mr. Lind.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're on to board reports and requests. Are there board reports or requests?
This is Dr. Elora Diaz. I have a request for, I don't know, a board update's fine, but a board agenda item, if you think is appropriate, we could do as well. I'll leave that to you, Dr. Weeks, but I would just like to know what our plan is come fall, and in the event that we have to stay closed, or if there's like a staggering process, you know, where we have some students on campus certain times, or just in the event that we can't go back to normal operation.
Yes, we'll provide some information on that. That's kind of the dirty crystal ball, right? And so, but one of the things in terms of a vision going forward, because we've heard a lot about what public education will look like after COVID-19. And there is going to be some digital component to this. And so what that looks like, I'm not sure that I have that squared away vision just yet. We'll do the best we can to forecast that. We certainly need to have some plan in place should the virus come back in the fall. And so we want to have that contingency plan in place. But also, we don't necessarily want to undo everything that we've been doing with regards to our distance learning. We want to make sure that we can learn from these plans, and when we get back to school, to the benefit of our students. So I don't want to send the message to folks out there that when we get back to school that we're just going to get back to what we've always been doing. This has changed us. And so what we need to do is document how this has changed us and retool ourselves so that we can be better prepared, and we can leverage the technology in a way that benefits and impacts even more students. So we'll do the best we can, Dr. Elora Diaz, to put some kind of plan in place. And I do think it probably should be a board action item so we can share our conversation with the public.
Thank you.
Are there other board reports or requests?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Talk louder.
Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, thank you. two requests on my end. To touch on Dr. Diaz's request, I understand that the district is taking over the packet printing and things like that. So I'm not sure if it's a board update or something like that, but I just wanted to kind of get a visual of how we're taking that over, I guess, and making sure we involve the principals and teachers that work specifically in those areas. Like, how are we going to make sure, teachers are aware of what the district is planning, and then also how we're going to make sure we're bringing enough items to get out to everyone. Just kind of what that looks like, I guess. Oh, and secondly, just a follow-up request to see what are the systems or processes or financial data looks as far as our relationship with the Phoenix One Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Trujillo. So here's what I heard, an update or some sort of presentation regarding the Phoenix One Foundation and an update on, I guess, the district packet printing and kind of a visual on the participation of principals and teachers. Is that correct?
Yes, and I'll clarify a little. I don't want to give more work. I guess I want to know what the level of involvement really is. Maybe not a visual or a presentation kind of a thing. I just want to know that I guess that his voice is getting heard, I guess.
Okay, we can present that, provide some information on that.
Thank you.
Just to let the board know what's been going on communication-wise so far is that we're meeting with, through Zoom, we're meeting with our principals and now our directors twice a week. And so there's about 50 to 70 people on a Zoom meeting twice a week, depending on who's available. And that's been facilitated very well by Dr. Vic Diaz, Dr. Selman Brown, Troy Harris, and some others, depending on what the topics are and what the greatest need is. The principals have been asked to have Zoom meetings with their teams twice a week, and usually they come off the heels of the big meeting. And Mr. Trujillo, I misspoke earlier with regards to the mailing. We have asked schools to independently mail correspondence to their families if they've been unable to get a hold of by some other means, email, phone calls, and whatnot. So there's been some targeted mailing that's gone out, but it's been school specific, not at the district level. So there is that. Then Dr. Brown has a task force specific to talk about the distance learning. That's been going on for, I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks, and I'm trying to remember. And there's principals and teachers and folks on that task force. I'm trying to remember the number of folks. Dr. Vic Diaz, do you recall the number of folks who were on that task force, or Dr. McLaughlin?
This is Dr. McLaughlin. There are 20 people on the distance learning task force.
The distance learning task force has 20 folks. So there's some of the information, but we'll provide some more information, Ms. Trujillo, so that the board's aware of kind of the consolidated communication that's been going around.
Thank you.
Any other board reports and requests? I have a couple. First, I just want to thank Dr. Weeks and Cabinet, because for all of this, I can only imagine how difficult it is to build something that it's like you're walking in the dark and no one has had to do this before, so you can't even rely on your friends. And I know that lends itself towards creativity and everybody working together and kind of seeing ideas that you never expected to come out. It's like the answer's in the room, you just have to find it. But I just want to acknowledge how I know, I can only imagine how hard you've had to work in order to make this happen. So I wanted to thank you for that. And I do have a couple of things I'd like to request. I'd like to request that we have roll call while we can, on our agenda, while we have our Zoom board meetings. I just think it's important for the community to be able to hear that, you know, that our clerk calls the roll and they know who's here and who's not. I think that should be in our agenda. And I'd like, as I said to Dr. Hidalgo, I'd like to have the recommendations for next year. And we don't need those right away, but you know, as the school year winds down and school is over, and we'd like to see those before you leave, of course. And I still like the information that I requested before about outcomes. I'd like to know, you know, how many children have been exited from special education by category and by grade, starting in preschool through 8th grade in the last year. And I might want more. You can get that off of ADE, but I'd have to do a request. So I figure that Diane should have that information at hand. And those are 3. The other thing is, have you had any thought or any discussion at this point about what you might be doing with 8th graders, since there'll be no promotion, to have some kind of closure? I know this is very challenging, but has there been any discussion?
There has been some discussion, Mrs. Benjamin. I don't know that it's been the kind of discussion that gives a...
You're breaking up. It's hard to hear, Dr. Weeks.
Oh, it's the district network, Mrs. Benjamin. So there has been some conversation. We are fighting like heck to figure out a way to make this work. We're looking at other districts to see what they're doing, and we're holding out hope. We don't really have a lot of good news for you today, but just to let you know that this is top of mind. This is very important to our 8th grade students. And
it is. I've heard from some of them.
Yeah, we're going to do all that we can here. But I just don't have anything really positive or tangible to speak to today.
Well, I hope that you reach out to other school districts, and if I hear anything or anybody else hears anything, to, you know, please pass that on, because there's somehow to have to say goodbye to their teachers, to say goodbye to some of their friends that they don't see otherwise. I just think it's somehow, some way would be really great to at least try to do something. So thank you for that. And I have one thing I want to say. We have, besides what I just said, we have, you know, talked about all the people that we thank, and you know, from, you know, CNI to child nutrition and all this. But I want to read this little thing to you. It says, our children are little heroes too, missing their grandparents, their extended family, their friends, and their school, their lack of normal routines, their lack of structure to their day. They've got parents who are stressed and worried, scared, and sometimes just different right now. They're overhearing talk and news without an understanding of what they hear. So it's important to remember to give your little hero more cuddles, more one-on-one playtime, and an extra dose of patience and forgiveness. So these are for all our little heroes out there who are waiting to see their teachers and their friends again, hopefully in the fall. Thank you. On to the revised board meeting dates.
Yes, first of all, Mrs. Benjamin, thank you for that. That was really well said. So appreciate you reading
Well, someone sent that to me. I didn't make that up. But it really touched my heart. And the kids, sometimes we think they're doing okay, and really, they really do need our patience and understanding and forgiveness.
There's plenty of sleepless nights to go around.
Yes, for sure.
So this is a requested change to the board calendar. And basically what it does is it puts us on notice for Zoom meetings for the rest of the fiscal year. in the hopes that we would get back to regular meetings in the summer. So I would expect there will be another change coming around soon enough, depending on what the Fed or the state says with regards to coming back to school or an extension of some kind. So this just lets folks know. This just lets folks know that this is kind of what we're planning to the best of our ability with regards to our board meetings.
Does anybody have any comments or questions? I have one, and you may not have the answer for this right now, Dr. Weeks, but how are we going to, how's the board going to receive the information from the study sessions that are canceled? And I understand canceling them.
We don't have a plan for that at the moment. We're going to have to develop a plan and then deliver the information, probably in a written form, I would imagine, and then let the board determine whether or not they want, let's say, for example, a receive and discuss during one of our regular meetings. What we're trying to do now is just get grounded with COVID and then get back to some normalcy. You know, we need to get back to hiring for next year. We need to get back to our meet and confer conversations. You know, this COVID kind of ran over us like a freight train, but we do have normal business. We have to adopt the budget for next year and all the rest. And yes, we do need to get back to those work study sessions. We don't want to forget to do what we said we were going to do, but we kind of need to retool and revamp the plan on how this all comes together. I would say for now, it will come to you in kind of written documentation. And then should the board want to agendize and receive and discuss, then we can bring it to the, you know.
Well, I can bring it up again. I just wanted it to be some discussion that you and cabinet had. Okay. There's no other comments there. We'll move on to the future agenda items. Are there any future agenda items not already passed on? I'm hearing none. So at this point, I think we are adjourned. Be well, everyone. Take care of your families. Take care of yourselves. And I believe we will see you in May for a live stream on May 14th for another board meeting. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all, governing board, for your support. It really means a lot. Thanks everybody for being here.
Be well.
Yes.
Bye, everyone.